Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. The show is Clutch with Keon Rose. I appreciate your joining me today. We've got some stuff to talk about, particularly in the NFL, because it's my last show of the week. And so we have some NFL matchups coming up this weekend in the playoffs as we get closer and closer to the Super Bowl. And the Titans are still in the playoffs, and the Falcons are still in the playoffs, and I am filled with hope for one of those teams. Also, there's a distinct possibility that of the 4 playoff matchups this weekend, we could wind up with 4 truly awful games. Like, we could end up with some dreadful experiences on Sunday and Saturday. Is this a Sunday-Saturday experience? Is this what's happening? Because we get to this point in the NFL season, and the NFL decides, it's a Sunday-Saturday thing. So we have Falcons-Eagles, 4:35 Saturday evening. We have Titans-Patriots Saturday night, and then Sunday, the Jaguars play the Steelers at 1, and the Saints and the Vikings at 4:40 on Sunday. So we have this thing going on. The NFL decides they want to take up your entire weekend. I'm not opposed to this, by the way. I'm not opposed to having my weekend sucked up by football. So that's something that totally works for me. What doesn't work for me is this possibility that all 4 of these games could not just be bad. They could be misery. So we'll get into the picks of the show. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Also, getting into this John Gruden situation in Oakland with the Raiders, the currently Oakland, soon-to-be Las Vegas Raiders hiring John Gruden, and we all know they were dead set on John Gruden, which if they were dead set on John Gruden, may have violated the NFL's Rooney Rule, so we'll have to get into all of that as well. But before I do want to talk some of the lingering aftershocks of the national championship game, because you're Alabama. I feel like it's pretty clear what you need to do offensively moving forward, right? Which is that you need to start Tua Tagovailoa and move forward. And this is something that is being taken in a sort of way because people have been unnecessarily critical of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, a guy who was 25-2 as a starter, a guy who in a lot of games single-handedly put Alabama on his back offensively, right? Like Alabama found themselves, I think, in the last 2 years in more shootouts than you would consider an Alabama team to be in. And Jalen Hurts is largely responsible for Alabama coming out on top in most of those shootouts. Absolutely no doubt about it, right? And to be clear, Jalen Hurts almost won that national title game over Clemson, right? There was a little too much time, and Deshaun Watson did Deshaun Watson. But Jalen Hurts ended the game with a drive that would have been the game-winning touchdown were it not for Deshaun Watson. People have been really critical of this guy to the point where even Tua Tagovailoa is like, no, guys, stop. Like, how ridiculous can you be? No, the reason why you had to go to Tua in that game is because Tua simply got a better deep ball. And he fits into the system of Mike DeBoer more than Jalen Hurts did. I thought that Jalen Hurts was perfect with Lane Kiffin. And I thought, well, you know, Alabama is not going to bend over backwards to keep Lane Kiffin. And Nick Saban is not the kind of guy to bend over backwards to keep a person like Lane Kiffin around, right? Like Lane Kiffin can be agitating, and Nick Saban's got a way that he likes to do things. If you can't do things the Nick Saban way, you get out. So you have to get out. But I thought it was a perfect fit with Jalen Hurts. I thought that worked incredibly well in terms of opening up the vertical attack for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is not the kind of guy who's going to stand in the pocket and read your defense and decipher it. You need to use a lot of bootleg action with this guy, get him out of the pocket, get him rolling, and then as vertical routes reveal themselves, he'll be able to make those kinds of plays. But that's not the system that Alabama ran this season, and it really was to his detriment because they weren't interested in trying to develop Jalen Hurts into what it is that he did best. They tried to force him into what they did, and he tried. And by the way, it worked mostly. Just wasn't working in the title game. So you end up going to Tua, who fits what it is that you do a whole lot better. And it worked out. Also, I don't believe that Georgia really honestly thought for half a second that Alabama would ever go to Tua Tagovailoa in the middle of a football game, because why would you think that? So they were not necessarily prepared. But Jalen Hurts, I mean, he's been showing an incredible amount of dignity. He's been showing an incredible amount of class with all of this. And not just Jalen Hurts, by the way. Jacob Eason, who was the starter for Georgia before he got injured at the beginning of the season, and Jake Fromm came in as a true freshman and took his job. I'm hearing reports that Jacob Eason might transfer out of Georgia. I hear reports that possibly even Jalen Hurts might transfer out of Alabama. And I don't think there's anything wrong with either of those guys wanting to transfer when you consider how good they have been for their teams. I thought Jacob Eason was on the cusp of, I don't want to say greatness, but on the cusp of making that leap from, okay, this kid's talented, to he can be a star, right? Now, Jake Fromm, I think, came in and looked a whole lot more polished and did everything that they asked him to do, did everything that they needed him to do, and did it exceptionally. So I'm not here to like knock Fromm at all. I'm just saying Jacob Eason was on the cusp of something, and so yeah, I don't mind if he transfers out. I don't think that's a problem. And I know that people treat guys transferring out like it's some kind of cancer, it's some kind of disease ravaging the world of college sports. And like, no, the guys deserve to have the mobility that they want. How is it that a player transferring is a cancer to the sport, but coaches who just up and move anytime they want to, that's not the cancer? I mean, let's not be ridiculous here. Clutch with Keon Rose on all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. And speaking of Mike the Ball and his pocket quarterback-centric system, he might be out. He might be out of Alabama. The word on the street is, right, the scuttlebutt. Scuttlebutt. So, yeah, no, the word on the street is that he is eyeing a return to the NFL. And if he does that, then he will leave Nick Saban once again without an offensive coordinator. And I think that this is where my argument for Nick Saban being the greatest coach of all time exists, right? Because Nick Saban, who, no matter what anybody tells him, will never, ever, 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 ever say that he is a better coach than Bear Bryant. And I don't think he's a better coach than Bear Bryant. But I certainly think that he is a greater coach than Bear Bryant, right? Like, Bear Bryant is mythological and legendary. And you have a hard time explaining to me or showing me how it is that Nick Saban isn't, at this point, a myth. Like, Nick Saban has already reached like legendary mythological status. He's already met those standards. Right? Like, he keeps winning titles. And every time he wins a title, he loses a coordinator, and it doesn't stop him from winning. This is the thing that is incredible to me, right? It's one thing that he's always recruiting the best players, but his coaching schemes change all the time. And it's a testament to how good he is, in the same way that I feel like it's a testament to Bill Belichick. When you look at how these guys have coached, and you've got assistant coaches and offensive coordinators, and they always go somewhere, they get hired by somebody, and the success never seems to really stop. It never stops. Nick Saban has lost. Has he lost a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator for like the fifth year in a row? Because he lost Kirby Smart last year. He's losing Jeremy Pruitt to Tennessee this year. Who did he lose the year before? Right? He lost Kiffin last year. And a lot of these guys leave and wind up coaching in the SEC and still can't beat Saban, right? Like, no one's gotten closer than Kirby Smart in Georgia. Nobody. Like, everybody coaches in this league and still can't beat Saban. Like, if that guy's not great, you come off of his coaching tree, you go to another school where you range from, decently successful to marginally successful to great, and you still can't beat him. Like, how's that guy not the best to ever do it? So the fact that he's losing the ball, that doesn't seem to, that's not a problem. What I think is an issue, or what I think makes this a story, is the Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts conundrum. The conundrum being that you have two very good, very talented quarterbacks. You have one quarterback that's got everything on the resume that you can ask for, 25-2. He is incredible, and he has been incredibly successful for you. And then you have the young guy who jumped into the national championship game, came off the bench, and immediately was impactful, and immediately led his team to the greatest result that you could have had and could have asked for in asking him to do such a thing. He did that. And he seems to be a better fit for what it is that you do and what you want to do. Which guy you choose, I think all comes down to which coordinator do you wind up with? What style of offensive coordinator do you wind up with? Because Nick Saban, to me, and I think Nick Saban's going to probably try and find another coordinator that is more traditional, because I think that that's where his heart lies, that Nick Saban still wants to coach college football the way college football has always been coached. I don't think that the spread attack and all of these extra fancy buttons and gizmos in an offense impress him, and I don't think that he necessarily wants it. I don't think that makes him happy. Right? Even though I thought Lane Kiffin and Jalen Hurts, that combination, had they kept that together, that would have been terrifying. That would have been absolutely terrifying. And so, yeah, no, I'm curious to see where they're going to go with this, because that's going to determine which of the two guys do you wind up with, right? Like, it has to. Because there were rumors that Tua was thinking about transferring if he didn't get any playtime in the national championship game, which I don't think that Nick Saban even blinks at stuff like that. I think that the reason why he was able to get time in the national championship game was simply he was the better option and the more unexpected fit. And I think that is the reason why he was able to get inserted into that game. I don't think that Nick Saban is worried about guys threatening to transfer. Guys have threatened to transfer all the time. Guys have transferred all the time, and it doesn't seem to have bothered him at all. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. So now I want to talk a little bit about this Rooney Rule with the Raiders and the John Gruden situation, because they fired Jack Del Rio. And they fired Jack Del Rio because it became obvious to them that they were going to be able to hire John Gruden. That was the only reason why they were going to fire Jack Del Rio, right? So here's the issue. The Raiders want to hire John Gruden. But the NFL's got a rule. It's an affirmative action rule. It's the Rooney Rule, which is that you have to interview at least one minority coach before proceeding with your coaching search. And some people love the rule, some people hate the rule. I'm a big fan of the rule, as you might have guessed, I suppose, if you listen to the show at all. I'm a big fan of the rule. Okay? And the reason why I'm a big fan of the rule is because the rule gives minority coaches an opportunity to get interviews. It's not the thing where it's saying hire them. You don't have to hire him. Just interview him. Just interview him. And a lot of guys have gotten hired off of the fact that they've been able to get the interview. Right? Like, that to me is the reason why I like the rule, is that it's worked. Because they have gotten the interview, they have been able to get the job. And I'm more for equality, but I'm for equality of opportunity. I'm not about equality of result. I don't think that you should try and govern in such a way that everyone ends up with all the same stuff. That's communism. Doesn't work. But in terms of having opportunities, I feel like you should have opportunities that don't appear to be racially based. And they were. And I don't think that it was on purpose, but they were. And so the Rooney Rule gives a lot of minority coaches an opportunity to get interviews and get hires that maybe they wouldn't have. I don't know that Carolina winds up with Ron Rivera if they don't interview him. I don't know that Jim Caldwell gets any of his jobs if they don't interview him. Right? Like, I don't know that any of these guys get the opportunities that they've gotten without getting first the interview that the Rooney Rule requires you to have. And so if you want to hire John Gruden, right, you know you want to hire John Gruden. But how does the Rooney Rule help you? Right? Like, you're doing a coaching search for which you believe there's only one candidate. That candidate's name is John Gruden. All non-John Gruden people need not apply. But they still have to interview a minority candidate. And I believe they interviewed T. Martin, the former national championship winning quarterback for Tennessee and current USC offensive coordinator. I believe it was T. Martin that they interviewed. And it's gonna be a farce, okay? And my thing is, I have a couple of questions about this because I really want to know, at what point do we no longer need the Rooney Rule, right? Because you can't need it forever. What you want is a way that you get people used to the idea of interviewing minority candidates so that it happens. But you don't want to live in a world where you require everybody to interview minority candidates forever. So when is the end of the Rooney Rule, right? Like, are we good now? If you remove the Rooney Rule, do you believe minority coaches still get those same opportunities? Do they get the same opportunities for interviews? To simply get their foot in the door. It's not even about you have to hire the guy. It's just interview him because you weren't going to if we didn't make you. Right? Many qualified, Black, Hispanic coaches didn't get interviews. And here they are getting interviews, and it's working, right? They're getting interviews, and that's when a general manager can look at this guy and go, oh, no, actually, he is very qualified to do the job that we are asking him to do. Right? So that's my first question. When are we Rooney ruled out? When is this enough where we believe that things are equal enough that we no longer need the Rooney Rule? Are we close? Are we close? I have no idea. I'm looking at the NFL. I'd like to believe that we're closer. The NFL, by the way, leads all sports leagues in diversity. That there are more minorities and there are more women working in the NFL than in the NBA, than in the NHL, than in MLS, than in MLB. There are more people of different backgrounds working in the NFL. And I'm talking about executives and officials than in any other sport. Right? It's like the NFL is already leading the way on that because the NFL even need the Rooney Rule any longer. And the other issue is the enforcement of the Rooney Rule. What is it? Do you take away draft picks from somebody for that? It's like, what? For not being diverse enough? I'm not entirely certain exactly what the NFL does to enforce this. They are doing an investigation with the Raiders, and also this is like the one time where a team has violated the Rooney Rule. If in fact the Raiders did in fact violate the Rooney Rule, if they did, then that makes a ton of sense. There was one specific guy that they wanted. They didn't want anybody else. There was one human being they were looking for, and he wanted the job too. It wasn't really a coaching search. They just hired the guy they wanted. Right? They wanted that guy so bad, they fired the coach that they had that was already good to get a guy they thought was better. Right? And I understand the slippery slope of that, which is that if you allow that, then people just start circumventing the Rooney Rule by saying, well, no, it's the guy that I always wanted. And then they don't, because that's how teams work. But like I said before, I don't know, but I have the feeling that we're nearing that point where we no longer really need the Rooney Rule. But I don't know exactly what the quota would be for the league to no longer have the Rooney Rule. I think that it's a great rule in terms of what it was that it did, which is to give minority candidates chances to interview for jobs that they would not already have had, that they were in fact qualified for. Right? Like Ron Rivera was qualified. Jim Caldwell's qualified. These guys are qualified. I forget the name of the coach that got fired from the Broncos the other day. Even though he had one season of an awful football team, he was qualified for the job that he was hired for. And I don't believe that these guys are getting opportunities without that rule. But how much longer do we need this rule? And can you penalize a team if they already have in mind the guy that they want to get, right? Like, they didn't hire John Gruden because he's white. They hired John Gruden because he's John Gruden. So that ends up being a very sticky situation. It's a spider web of a problem. And I think the NFL needs to figure out how they're going to rule on this, because they're going to end up setting a precedent for future coaching hires down the road. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, here on 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Chattanooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Disciplinary action is pending after a school bus driver left 2 children unattended. The mother is a school bus monitor for Durham. She's on a different route. She puts her kids on the bus every morning at 6 a.m. She says her 13-year-old daughter texted her saying that she and her 7-year-old brother have been left on the bus unattended. Major traffic changes coming to Chattanooga on Highway 27 that could temporarily cause some serious slowdowns. TDOT spokeswoman Jennifer Flynn said that she wants to encourage people to be patient and drive the new speed limit, which is 45 through the project zone, and a shorter area, which is 35 miles per hour. The Tennessee Highway Patrol will be heavily patrolling the area to enforce that new speed limit change. The affected areas around Market Street, Main Street, and Martin Luther King Boulevard. A Murray County man perished in a house fire in Chatsworth, Georgia. Fire investigators believe he was smoking in bed. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7. Now.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Oh man, rush. I've got to get stuff for the party. Where can I go? It's going to give me a wine selection of beer, wines, and spirits. Oh, I got it. I'll go to Harry's Wine and Spirits, Signal Mountain. Maybe East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd. I could go to Riley's Wines and Spirits in Hickson. Wow, look at the huge selection in here. Look at these great prices. Amazing. Oh yeah, I'm going to find something for my lady too. I'm going to make this party a success.
Make your party a success when you stop in at Harry's Wine and Spirits in Signal Mountain, East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd, and Riley's Wine and Spirits in Hickson. An automated nuclear missile defense system has suddenly entered into launch mode, and you are the only one who can stop it. Escape Experience Chattanooga. Your team has just been infected with a deadly virus. Your only hope? There, an abandoned farmhouse. Escape Experience Chattanooga. Handcuffed in a maximum security prison, you have an hour to flee. Escape Experience Chattanooga. These escape scenarios and more at Chattanooga's best escape room, game, and team building platform. Call now. Slots are limited. Register online at escapeexperience.com/Chattanooga. Escape Experience Chattanooga.
If your computer is running slow, if you have viruses, if someone called you asking to get into your computer, just say no. If a screen pops up on your computer saying your data is going to be deleted and you have to call this number, don't call it. You need to call Affordable Computers. You wouldn't invite a stranger to come into your house to look at all your books and records. So why would you invite someone to look at your records on your computer? With one wrong click of the mouse, you could be allowing access into your entire system. At Affordable Computers, we can stop them now. Don't be fooled by scammers and pop-ups that tell you you must call this number or your hard drive is going to be deleted. You need to call Affordable Computers. Call Affordable Computers now. Microsoft is never going to call you. Microsoft is never going to ask you to call them. If you see that on your screen, you are being scammed. Stop and call Affordable Computers. 423-499-1975. That's 423-499-1975. In Fort Oglethorpe, call 706-858-5888. That's 706-858-5888. Affordable Computers.
95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM.
Expect fair to partly cloudy skies continue through your nighttime. Cold overnight, lows mid and upper 20s. Now for your Wednesday, look for some sunshine with a breeze out of the north, though. Light cold highs up around 40 with more mainly dry and cold weather expected through Friday. Celebrate the new year with Dixieland Fireworks. Locally owned with the largest selection around. A Black Cat dealer with the lowest prices in Dixie. Dixieland Fireworks just off I-75 on Ringgold Road, East Ridge. And I'm Storm Team 12, Chief Meteorologist Pat Report.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News, NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com, live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Chattanooga Radio.
You're listening to all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. We have some interesting matchups in the NFL this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Football taking up your whole weekend. All the Dirty Bird fans have to be very excited about the matchup that they have. You're an Atlanta Falcons fan. That's a good matchup for you, the Philadelphia Eagles. No Carson Wentz for the Eagles. And even though you're playing in Philadelphia, you're going up against Nick Foles. And look, Atlanta's defense looks like the real deal right now. And I think that that is the thing that is the important headlining issue of this team, which is that their defense actually was a big part of the reason why they were so successful last year, that they got them back the ball in wonderful field position over and over and over again. We got a taste of that last week against the Rams, right? We saw Atlanta. The defense stepped up. They were able to contain Gurley. They were able to make open field tackles. They were able to stop one-on-one plays, and I think that that changed the entire dynamic of the game. The Rams didn't get to do any of the stuff that the Rams did this season that made them successful. Not one thing. They didn't get to hand the ball off to Gurley. They didn't get to use their play-action fake. They didn't get to use any of it because Atlanta stuffed it all, and it's because there were a lot of situations where you had one player isolated. A lot of times it was Brian Poole. You had a player isolated that had to make an open field tackle by himself. And if he doesn't do that, the entire Atlanta game plan falls apart. Well, Poole did that, and Atlanta ended up being very successful. And the offense started to show signs of life as to what it was that it looked like last year, right? Like, not exactly. Because I think that last year is just an unreasonable standard to expect anybody to reach. But when you talk about a team that was able to capitalize on special teams mistakes and make big time defensive plays and give back the ball to the offense multiple times in great field position. If you're Atlanta, you've got to feel very happy about that. You've got to feel very happy that it's Philadelphia that you're running into, that you're basically guaranteed a spot in the NFC title game by virtue of Philadelphia not necessarily looking like a team that's got that first round bye. And it's because they don't have Carson Wentz. Right? And by the way, I think Atlanta could beat Philadelphia with Carson Wentz. But without him, I don't see how Philadelphia wins this game, actually. I'm actually not certain how that happens. Right? And so that brings me to something that I have noticed about all four of these games, which is that they all have the potential to be absolutely nightmarishly bad, right? I think that Atlanta beating Philadelphia is going to be a lopsided football game and one that's going to be painful to watch and maybe not even worth watching by the time we reach the middle of the third quarter. I think that that is the kind of game that we are looking at. Because if you think that Nick Foles is capable of taking apart this defense with Alshon Jeffrey, who is regressing by the day, if Alshon Jeffrey regresses anymore, he'll be 2 feet tall. And Nelson Aguilar, right? Like, these are the weapons. These are the weapons. The regressing Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Blanken Aguilar. Okay? So, yeah, I don't believe in Philadelphia's ability to put points on the board. Not at all. I like Philly's defense, and I think that they're going to do some things to disrupt Atlanta. But I thought LA's defense was better than Philadelphia's. If LA couldn't slow down the Falcons, I'm not seeing how the Eagles necessarily do it. Right? I mean, Aaron Donald had trouble getting to Matt Ryan on a regular basis. And we're talking about Aaron Donald, who could be the best defensive lineman in the game right now. In fact, I'm hard-pressed to find anybody else. Of active, healthy players, Aaron Donald might be it. Aaron Donald couldn't get to Matt Ryan. So I don't necessarily see how. I like Derek Barnett, but Derek Barnett's not Aaron Donald. Not yet. So who else? Right? Like, I'm not necessarily sold on this being a good game, right? And then, of course, the late game on Saturday night is Titans-Patriots. And look, Titans fans, no, I'm sorry. This isn't it. Not against that football team, not against the Pats, right? Like, I give the Titans a chance against any of these other AFC teams. Honestly, I would give them a chance against the Steelers. I would give them a chance against the Jags because we know they can beat them. Against Brady, it's already tough to bet against the Patriots. And it's already tough to bet against Brady. But the Titans are going to need to win a shootout to beat the Patriots. And when last I checked, now I don't know, you tell me, because the last time I checked, Mike Mularkey is still on this earth drawing breath, and he still collects a paycheck from the Tennessee Titans to be their head coach. So as long as Mike Mularkey is doing that, I don't ever go into a game believing the Titans can win a shootout. I've seen them do it, but I don't ever go into a game with that being the expectations. Like, life is about like managing expectations. I'm not going to be horribly disappointed when I know what Mike Mularkey is capable of. Anytime I watch the Titans play, I have the distinct feeling, and I feel like this every time I watch them play. I get the distinct feeling that Marcus Mariota is battling two forces every time he plays. He's battling the opposing defense, and he's battling his own head coach. Not a Mularkey guy. And if you believe that somehow last week absolved Mike Mularkey of being terrible at coaching offense, you are incredibly wrong. Because again, when the Titans had success offensively, it was when they went to the no huddle. And do you know who calls the plays when they're in the no huddle? Marcus Mariota! Not Mike Mularkey. Mariota calls the plays in the no huddle. And Titans players have said on numerous occasions they prefer it when Marcus calls the plays. Yeah, that's not good. When people prefer it when your quarterback calls the plays over your head coach and your offensive coordinator, you have actual problems as a unit. So no, I don't believe in the Titans' ability to beat the Patriots, because to beat the Patriots, you're going to have to score early and score often. Force them to pass the ball so that your defensive linemen can get an opportunity to just pin their ears back and get after Brady. Beat up Brady and then watch him fall apart, because that's the only game plan that you have. If you fall behind to the Patriots, you never get that chance. Never. And you lose. And that's how most people lose to the Patriots, is that they don't get after Brady. But if you're behind, you can't. You just can't. And I don't know, do you think Mike Mularkey's going to open up the offense this week? This is the week where he's just going to be converted. He's going to find some sense, because I don't see it. Here's the problem with Mike Mularkey's exotic smash mouth. It's a little more smash mouth than exotic. Not exotic enough. Not even close. So no, I don't believe in Mike Mularkey, and I don't believe in his ability to open this thing up. And so, yeah, no, I can't take the Titans over the Patriots with a good conscience and actually believe like I'm a football person talking sense. Like, I can't believe that. And I would expect to lose all credibility if I said anything otherwise. So, the next game is Jacksonville versus Pittsburgh, which I think is going to be either an entirely one-side affair featuring the Pittsburgh Steelers, or the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to do the thing that they do where they muddy the water. Now, Jacksonville has beaten Pittsburgh before. That is the only thing that makes this game even remotely fascinating. But I don't think that Jacksonville is going to beat Pittsburgh this time, and here's why. The last time Jacksonville and Pittsburgh met, Ben Roethlisberger threw a wild 5 interceptions in a game. Okay? 5 picks, which is a bad day for anybody. That is Nathan Peterman levels of bad. Ben Roethlisberger is not about to throw 5 interceptions again. I don't believe that that's possible. And without the help of those 5 interceptions, I don't think that Jacksonville can necessarily beat Pittsburgh. But here's something that I do know that gives Jacksonville a chance to make this game interesting. I don't think that they win it, but I think that they can make this game interesting. They've got to unleash Blake Bortles, which, again, sounds insane. Insane. But Blake Bortles, there's a reason why he was a first-round draft pick coming out of UCF. There's a reason why Blake Bortles still has a job in the NFL. And that is because Blake Bortles looks the part of an NFL quarterback. Right? He makes bad decisions often. He makes bad throws. Sometimes his form gets out of whack, and he makes, just awful decisions with the football. His footwork can be terrible. He has a fairly large windup when he throws. Sometimes he sidearms the ball for no good reason at all. But here's the thing that Blake Bortles has. He still has a strong arm. He still has a big frame, and he's still pretty quick. Right? Last week, Blake Bortles rushed for 88 yards on 10 carries, which is amazing when you think about it. You don't think about Blake Bortles being the fast guy. But no, the most success Jacksonville's offense had moving the ball was when he ran it. Any drive that they had last week that started with a run that was not a Blake Bortles run, Jacksonville punted the ball. Every play that started with a run that Blake Bortles ran was a field goal. So what I'm saying is Blake Bortles, or no, they had a touchdown and they had a field goal. Blake Bortles is the key to this game, and they just have to let him be Blake Bortles. And whatever happens, happens. If it's terrible and it blows up in your face, well, your quarterback is Blake Bortles. You could have fixed that a long, long time ago, and you didn't. And if it works out wonderfully for you, well, you've got a chance to win a football game over a Pittsburgh Steelers team that you really shouldn't be hanging around with at all anyway. But all of these games are going to be lopsided games, and this is the thing that I don't know. Like, the NFL does a whole lot of finagling and gerrymandering to make it such that we don't end up with these bad games in the playoffs. And here we are with these bad games in the playoffs. Right? I think the Falcons destroy the Eagles. I think the Patriots destroy the Titans. I think the Steelers destroy the Jaguars. I'm barring a Blake Bortles revival. And the Saints and the Vikings, I don't even know what to expect there because we've got a great defense against a brilliant offense. And experience tells me when these two teams meet in the playoffs, the great defensive team and the great offensive team, the defensive team usually triumphs. And it's usually pretty lopsided. It's usually pretty bad. Right? Like, everything is telling me take the Vikings in this one, in large part because the Vikings don't give up points. I don't know what to tell you. They're hard to score on. They're a very difficult team to score on. Now, if a team could actually do it, I do think that the Saints could be that team. Right? Like Drew Brees is the ignored MVP candidate of the season. And like a lot of names get tossed into the hat. Todd Gurley, Russell Wilson. More people should be talking about Drew Brees. Now, I think that one of the things that makes you ignore Drew Brees in this conversation is this is the least Drew Brees-like season ever. That Drew Brees has sort of taken a step back and allowed the running game to help carry him a little bit. That Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara have done a lot in terms of giving this offense a boost. But I don't think Drew Brees should be punished for the fact that his offense is normal. The Saints never used to run the ball, but that was not because they didn't want to. It was because they couldn't. And now they have the players and the personnel to do it. I don't think you should punish Drew Brees because now his team and his offense actually functions like a normal offense. But he's still been lights out. But he's still been absolutely amazing, accurate as he ever was. He's getting older. He should hand the reins over the offense a little bit to the younger guys. But make no mistake, Drew Brees is the straw that stirs the drink. If he's not there, this is not working. He's the guy that makes this whole thing click. I'm baffled at this idea that somehow Drew Brees is not the MVP of this league because he hasn't put up the gaudy numbers that he's put up before. Like, his numbers are still very monstrous. But not only that, he's now part of a normal offense. Right? Like, Matt Ryan won MVP last year, and he won it in large part because his offense was normal. That the Falcons can destroy you running the ball, and they can destroy you passing the ball. Drew Brees never had that. Now, because Alvin Kamara has offered a second flavor of running the ball, that particular acquisition has to be the best draft acquisition of the last season. The Saints taking Alvin Kamara out of the University of Tennessee has to absolutely be the best acquisition of the draft last year, because he opens a whole lot of things up for Ingram, and he opens up things for Brees, and he catches the ball out in space. In fact, if you do the draft all over again, I think if you're the Panthers, I think you draft Alvin Kamara, because I think Alvin Kamara is everything that they wanted Christian McCaffrey to be. And McCaffrey's been good. Kamara's been better. Right? Like, that's the thing. I think Kamara did not necessarily get the love and attention coming out of college that he should have gotten, because Tennessee was simply okay, whereas McCaffrey was coming from Stanford, and Stanford was great. There's a little bit of publicity going on there. But Alvin Kamara is everything you wanted out of Christian McCaffrey, but he's better. Again, not that McCaffrey's playing poorly. He's playing very well. But Alvin Kamara looks like he could be great. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. So, just to summarize, I'm taking the Falcons over the Eagles. Vegas has the Falcons as 3-point favorites on the road. I think they win by much more than 3. I think that's Vegas being a little bit conservative. I think they win by much more than 3. Because I don't know what answers Philadelphia has. They don't run the ball very well. Their offensive line is rubbish. Nick Foles is their quarterback. Alshon Jeffrey is playing worse by the week. And the Falcons are finding their footing on offense and defense, but especially on defense. I believe in Atlanta. I'm taking the Patriots over the Titans. Vegas has them as 13.5-point favorites. I think the Patriots win by more than 13. Right? I think they win by more than 2 touchdowns. Because I don't know what Tennessee can do. First off, I don't know if they can beat New England in a shootout. In large part because their own offense seems to be so ineptly run that I simply do not see such a thing as being possible. But also, I believe that we forget how good the Patriots defense can be. Just because we can't name most of the guys on their defense does not mean that their defense isn't great and one of the best in the league and incredibly difficult to score on for teams that are good at offense. For teams that are great, they're difficult to score on. The Titans are not great at offense. They're not. Blame malarkey. Sunday, I'm going to take the Steelers over the Jaguars. I do think that Blake Bortles gives the Jags an opportunity to make this thing interesting. But I also don't think that you unleash Blake Bortles if you're Doug Marrone. I think you should, but I don't think he does. I don't think he does, because it doesn't look to me like Doug Marrone has ever trusted Blake Bortles this season, and with good reason. Okay, Blake Bortles has given Doug Marrone plenty of reasons to not trust him. I mean, a ton, if you want to be completely honest about it. I mean, just the fact that last season he threw more touchdowns to people on other teams than to people on his team. Right? He threw more interceptions for touchdowns than touchdowns. That's not good. There's plenty of reasons not to trust Blake Bortles. I just think that they have to if they want to give this thing a shot. And even then, there's still a chance that it implodes absolutely horribly. So I think that Pittsburgh wins this one. I don't think that Ben Roethlisberger falls apart like he did last time. Also, Jacksonville's defense is dinged up. So if the defense was strong enough to take the ball away from Roethlisberger 5 more times before, they're certainly not good enough to do it now. And I think that the Vikings lopsidedly beat the Saints. And the reason why I think so, even though I do like Kamara and I do like Ingram and I do think that Brees is having an MVP-like season, is when I see defensive teams, best in the league defensive teams, come up against best in the league offensive teams, and both of those teams are healthy, the defensive team usually tends to have their way with the other team. And Mike Zimmer is one of the best defensive minds in football, and I think that in conjunction with the fact that the Vikings can also score. This is not one of those things where you win the game 10-3. Like, no. The Vikings can also score. Case Keenum has been playing very, very well, to the point where you actually have to acknowledge the fact that Case Keenum might actually be one of the solid quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Not great, but good. Good. He's been good. And he's given them an opportunity. They found some people. They found Adam Thielen as an undrafted free agent. I don't know how it is that anybody on earth missed that guy. Right? They lost Dalvin Cook early in the year running the football, but they still managed to be able to do enough to be a well-rounded, on-schedule offense. I think the Vikings have what it takes to beat the Saints. We have the possibility of 4 lopsided football games in the NFL playoffs this weekend. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. I'll see you all for this show